Hi everybody, my name's Glenn and welcome to this free presentation, How to Exercise for a Strong, Pain-Free Neck. We're going to discuss all the different ways that exercise can help you move and feel your best even if you've tried everything else. Let's dive right into it. So, first things first, the brain sacrifices using one joint to keep the rest of the body moving. Your body, it's smart and understands that if for whatever reason you stop moving and you can't get from point A to point B, you can't find water, you can't find food, and you can't survive. At least that's what it was like for millions and millions of years before we got to where we are today. With the advent of technology, it's very easy to get food delivered to your door in a heartbeat. But that's not the way the body evolved. And so one of the things that ends up happening to our bodies is that we all have our own unique life history. Injuries, stresses, traumas that have happened, our own day-to-day experience, and all those different things, if left unchecked or given to the body in inappropriate doses, can cause pain and discomfort and injury. And if the tissues in your body feel that they're injured or something could go bad, they will take that load or that burden off that tissue and they'll place it on other ones. And then those ones over time might get beat up as well, and the vicious cycle can continue. That's why exercise is so important, because it makes your body very resilient towards these stresses that happen in your body. Think about this another way. If you stub your toe, but no real damage happens, what happens? What goes on? You might walk funny for a few moments, but after that, you go back to walking normally as if nothing ever occurred. But imagine you stub your toe so bad that you break a bone or you sprain a ligament. What's going to end up happening? Well, you might end up having to get your foot casted up. In the very least, there's a lot of inflammation. The pain receptors, which are triggered to be even more sensitive in the face of inflammation, send a lot of pain signals to your brain. And what ends up happening is your body detects that this tissue in my toe, something's not right. Avoid using it. So you've got that cast on, you're walking funny. And what happens after 6 to 8 weeks of that? Well, the muscles inside of the foot and the toe, because they're all not being used, they atrophy, they get weaker. And your body not being able to move those joints, end up walking differently, placing different loads on different tissues like the knee, the hip, the low back, all these different areas right up to the neck and spine. And as a result of all these different things, maybe your knee bothers you, your leg bothers you, your neck bothers you, something will happen. Your body has to figure out a way to keep you moving without having this other piece. Even after you get the cast off, what ends up happening? Those muscles are still weak. You just start going back to what you're doing. Your body still hasn't fully recovered in terms of all its strength, its endurance, and its stamina. And as a result, it might just start using and keep using over and over again those tissues that it's already beating up after your initial toe stub injury. So the point I'm trying to make here is that your brain will sacrifice using one joint to keep the rest of the body moving. And that's a big reason why a lot of people have neck pain discomfort today, is because their body, for whatever reason, is overusing this thing way too much, and it's causing tightness, achiness, discomfort, and a host of other things that could be going on. So this is just kind of looking at what I just described a moment ago. So don't belabor it too much. You get acute pain and discomfort left unchecked. It can turn to chronic pain, and then you will start fearing that. Your body will start having physiological changes like less endurance, less muscle, all these different things and outcomes. You'll end up avoiding using that area more, leading to more acute pain in other areas, and the cycle continues. So this becomes the crux of the problem here. And this is where this presentation really starts, is that neck pain problem is really a problem of asymmetry. You've got asymmetry in your posture in terms of how your spine is holding itself and how it's affecting your arms and your legs. You've got asymmetries in range of motion, asymmetries in strength of all the individual joints in your body, and asymmetries in endurance in all the different muscles. I'm going to show you how all this plays out in just a moment. So let's take a look through. Before we go into that, I want to give you the easiest anatomy course you're ever going to go through. It's going to be really, really easy, but it's going to give you really great context to why your neck bothers you. So that if you decide to exercise in the future, or you see a medical practitioner or something, you're going to take action towards a thing to help your neck, you've got some ideas about, is this thing going to work or not? Because I want to help you feel empowered right now. So first, textbooks can be helpful, but they can be terrible. When I was in school, I learned about anatomy from textbooks. And textbooks, to help you learn, they give you everything in categories. These are muscles, these are bones, these are ligaments, these are tendons. And that's great to learn, but it's not really great to help you understand the function of your body. Because the reality is that your body sees itself as one individual system. And a lot of times, even these individual tissues like muscle, tendons, and bones, it's not like they're very distinct pieces in your body. Oftentimes, bones will fuse into tendons that fuse into muscle, that fuse back into tendons, that fuse back into bone. And so textbooks are great and helpful to learn right away, but in practicality, they set us back because we don't actually learn how all these things work together. So let's talk about bones real quick. Now, there's a couple things I want you to know about bones. First and foremost, bones are finite, which means that if they break down over time, they don't necessarily always go back to the way they were before. If you break your forearm, you're able to cast it up and have it get relatively to the way it was before. But other things like osteoarthritis, right, where there's a constant wearing tear of cartilage and other parts of your bony tissues, if that's happening in your body, those tissues don't grow back. Think about it like a magician on a bed of nails. If you have a magician, 100-pound magician, 100 nails, 1 pound per nail, no problem. But you take that same 100-pound magician, put them on 5 pounds, or I should say 5 nails, that's 20 pounds per nail. That's a big problem all of a sudden. Too much pressure in one area over time causes degradation of these materials. And if they don't grow back, they can cause really a lot of discomfort if there's some bone-on-bone movement. The other thing I want to point out here, if we take a look at these discs here, right? These discs are like the vertebrae of your spine, of your neck, right? And so if we look at these different discs here, what we can see is they actually fit together kind of like jigsaw puzzle pieces. There's a very direct fit in how these things are supposed to be stacked on top of each other. Now, if we look in the back here, right, we can see these two little different bony things here. We call them facets, but these two little different bony things here, when the disc sits on top of each other, watch what happens when we start rotating your spine. Do you see how they start hitting each other? Or if you were to extend these things in the back here, we call them spinous processes. The names aren't exactly super important, but these spinous processes, they can bang into each other as well. Now, when our body has lots of symmetry and they're nice and centered, and the muscles are working well, there's lots of control so that banging doesn't happen. But if we don't have the control that we're looking for, and these things are sitting funny, we can have all sorts of different things happen that don't make our back feel good or our neck feel good. We're going to talk about those in a moment. The last couple things I want to share with you about your spine is, one, you'll have a spinal cord, and that spinal cord is going to go right through these areas right here. If you can see right down the center, right? If you imagine the back, we'll bring this guy in for a moment, Dr. Bones. You can see here that spinal cord kind of goes right in through those little holes I was just showing you there. That, right, foramen, if you want to get technical. And we have nerve roots, nerves that come out that send and receive information from all over the body, that come out in between the gaps, right between these two vertebrae, right through here. If we're going to take a look at it, take a look at it on this one right here, you can see those nerve roots popping out right here and here. Last thing here, between all of our vertebrae, all over every aspect of our spine, there's going to be little discs right in here that absorb shock in your neck and your spine, right? So real quick again here, just a real brief recap, is we have these two vertebrae right here. And the vertebrae are supposed to sit symmetrically on top of each other. We've got these little bones that, if left unchecked, can run into each other. And in between these little vertebrae, there are little intravertebral discs that act as shock absorbers. And nerves come out through this little hole here, send information to the rest of your body, and that big spinal cord comes right through here. So let's take briefly a look at this spine here. And this is something I really want you to get and I really want you to understand. If we take a look here at all these different muscles in and around the neck, and this is just the backside, that's not even all the muscles, we can see this is one muscle that's coming off the shoulder blade and it's coming up into the neck. If I bring this over here, that muscle that I was just showing you kind of goes from the tip of the shoulder blade here, and it's going to go right into some of these bumps on the side of the vertebrae here at the very top of your neck. And so here's what I want you to know about this one muscle, right? I'm going to show you this one muscle. This guy right here, it's called the levator scap. that guy. It can do all this stuff with the neck. It can extend, it can side bend, and it can rotate to the right. It can do all that stuff at the neck. But here's the other cool thing. If the neck is stationary, that same muscle can also elevate your shoulder blade. It can also rotate it up this way. It can also pull that shoulder blade across the body in that direction. Now, why do I say this stuff? Why am I showing you all the stuff this one muscle can do? Because that muscle that impacts the shoulder blade will directly impact the neck and vice versa. And so if you have a shoulder blade or arm issue that affects the shoulder blade, it's going to directly impact your neck. And vice versa. If you have a neck issue over here, it could directly impact your shoulder blade. These areas near your trunk and spine that have muscles that cross multiple joints will have impact directly over everything they touch and they connect to. And that's pretty important because you might have a neck issue, but the issue might not actually be with your neck musculature or it might not be something that you want to be attacking by looking at the neck. Maybe you look at working the shoulder blade of the spine a little bit lower down. That ends up having a positive impact on your neck. But here's the thing is what do we do in this society? We always focus on the neck, the neck, the neck. Well, the neck might not be the source of the problem. It could be some issue with endurance, strength, posture asymmetry, range of motion at another joint, and your neck just happens to be where these symptoms are showing up. So posture, range of motion, strength, and endurance asymmetries are really, in my opinion, the root cause of a lot of people's neck pain and discomfort. Now, there's consequences to all these different things. I'm going to go over very briefly some of them with you, just so you can get a context for yourself what might be happening. So, the consequence of having less endurance and strength asymmetries in either the neck or the shoulders or the spine or another area in the body means that you might overuse muscles in the neck, cause them to get tight and achy. There might be excess tightness in that neck because it's contracting all the time to give you more support for your posture. And you might be straining your neck because those muscles are working so much that when they actually have to deal with a large amount of force at one time, whether it's checking the blind spot quickly or God forbid someone gets in a car accident and all of a sudden there's a lot of jerkiness through the neck, that could be enough to cause a strain. And so this is what ends up happening for a lot of people is they might have some muscles around their neck that are working really, really well, some muscles that aren't working really, really well, and the muscles that are working really well are taking over the work for the muscles that aren't working well. It'd be like me and you in a group project, and we're both supposed to do the even amount of work. But I decide to go on vacation, now you've got to do all the work. Who's upset? It's you. And now you're overworked, you're tight, you're upset, you're strained. That's what happens a lot to these neck muscles, is they're overworked because something else isn't doing their job. Now, often what I find is consequences in endurance and strength often lead to issues in posture and range of motion. Because if your muscles aren't strong, they can't move you to the positions that you want them to be in, affecting your range of motion. And your posture is really just made up of the relative strength of all your muscles at any given moment. Think about it like this. When you wake up in the morning, you tend to have more energy and you might feel pretty good compared to when you go to bed in the evening time. And you might be walking taller, you might have the energy to do more stuff, but what happens as you go through the day? What happens as you go throughout your day? You get tired, your muscles fatigue. By the end of the day, if you're still standing around, you're probably leaning on something. Why is this? It's because you've lost some of the strength and endurance of your muscles. And if there are times where you're having great posture, and we can talk about that is at another time, but if you have relatively good posture for yourself and you're walking around feeling good, but by the end of the day, the left side of your body, those muscles get too tired and the right side has to get to do more work, and you end up holding yourself like this more because they're just tight and they're holding you up. What's going to be achy? This stuff over here on this side. And so the consequence of having less strength and less endurance are direct effects on posture and range of motion. We talked about this a little bit already, but if we take the spine again here, right, and someone gets tired, and all of a sudden, right, over the course of the day, they're holding themselves like this, and they're flexing and extending their spine and moving around, well, that disc on the right-hand side that sits in between these vertebrae, that's something that's going to get tired and damaged more and beat up because there's more pressure on that side, leading to degenerative disc disease, or potentially discs slipping out and herniating out the other side because it's opened and the other side is compressed downwards. So we can see the direct impact of differences in posture, range of motion, and all the other asymmetries I've discussed so far. If parts of our bone, like these two guys right here, are constantly rubbing up against each other because of the asymmetry, well, that irritation of them rubbing up will cause more and more bone to be added into that area, right? Over time, if left unchecked, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, a couple of decades, so much bone can grow here that it might start encroaching in some of the nerves popping out of here, causing pain and discomfort, or hampering information transfer, making it harder to contract the muscles, sudden weakness and fatigue in the body. This is what's known as stenosis. Other people will have sciatica because of compression of some of these different nerves in the lower parts of their spine into their sacrum. Again, that compression is coming from the muscles contracting and pulling differently, and some of the degradation of some of these other parts of your spine. Now, all these different things might not be what you experience. You might experience one thing or the other. Maybe you've got something a little bit more serious like stenosis, or maybe you have something a little bit less bothersome like just like a little bit of neck tightness. However, the thing I really want to point out though is that all that stuff where you get asymmetries in endurance and strength will over time end up having an impact on your posture, range of motion, and can lead to a whole bunch of other stuff. Now the good news is that there's ways that we can have you feel a ton better. And that's by creating more symmetry and strength, endurance, posture, and range of motion. So first things first is you can learn to be stronger. How can you learn to be stronger? Well, believe it or not, your brain and your muscles can learn to be stronger almost in an instant. It's pretty impressive. And that's because of something called potentiation. See, when you use your muscles and you challenge them in a way that's appropriate for you, your body can remember that and learn that. And if it likes it and it feels good, it will tell the brain, hey, we feel more comfortable using this. Open up your range of motion a little bit more. Feel free to use this a little bit more, which is absolutely fantastic. And we see this all the time when we work with our clients, is that if there's a motion that they have a hard time getting into, and we do some kind of test where it's easy to push them out, and then we create an exercise to strengthen that range of motion, that thing that was weak, we can test them again and we can see they feel a lot stronger. It's a lot easier for them to hold that position because their muscles are potentiated. So your body can learn in a matter of minutes to be stronger. Now, here is one of the amazing things about exercise and training, is that it's progressive and you can build up the tissues in these areas, like your muscle. You can strengthen your tendons, you can build up more bone in the appropriate areas in the right ways to have a stronger neck, a stronger, more pain-free neck. And one of the things that we do with our clients here is after we teach their body to open up these ranges of motion, we teach their body to learn that they can have control of these positions, we start creating exercises for the neck, for the shoulders, for the trunk, for whatever they need in order to get that thing that they learn to stay. And if we can get that thing to stay and then build more muscle and then train that muscle to have more stamina, more endurance, they'll be stronger. They'll do the stuff they want to do for longer, and that tightness will over time become less and less, and hopefully to the point where you don't even notice it anymore, which is pretty cool. So step one is usually we've got to teach your body to hold itself in different ways. We've got to teach it to learn new things. And then step two, we just strengthen that by doing some exercise so it learns to keep that, and so that all the supporting tissues feel better and better, stronger and stronger, and can do more and more, right? So once we teach the different muscles around your neck and your spine and your shoulder blades to learn to move better, and we see that range of motion open up, and then we get those muscles and those movements stronger, so there's more endurance and more stamina to help you be nice and tall, to have good posture for you, so that your neck doesn't have to work overtime for other muscles. The next best thing you can do is strengthen the rest of your muscular system. Because your muscular system does a couple really amazing things for you. One, it holds your posture. Two, it allows you to move around. And three, a big one is that it absorbs shock. Every time you take a step, you have to essentially absorb the force of your foot and your body weight hitting the ground. And you do that by contracting your muscles up through your foot, your knee, your hip, your spine, all the way up towards your neck. Think about this. When you go for a walk, you don't actually really feel any jarring sensations, your head rattling around on your spine. Why is that? because your body does a really good job of absorbing force through all the other joints so that by the time you get to your neck, it doesn't have to really worry about that. Because if it had to, and your head was always moving around on your spine and your neck, well, then you have tension headaches all the time. You have brain bruising, and your body would not want that. It's not great. So getting the rest of your body strong is going to be absolutely pivotal to having a nice healthy neck. Because if you can rely on having your shoulder and the rest of your spine and your hips and your legs and your arms do all the work, and your neck doesn't have to be tight or doesn't have to do any of that work because everything else is doing the work that it's supposed to, this is going to start feeling pretty amazing. So you have to get the areas in your body that are relatively weaker stronger, and you also have to get the rest of the system stronger as well. So what does this end up doing? Well, remember that vicious circle we talked about before? As you're working through that acute pain and you start healing, if you can increase your strength and endurance, and because of those two things, your recovery, you will break this cycle of acute pain to chronic pain to physiological changes in fear to sensation avoidance and then acute pain in other areas. You'll actually be able to reverse this. So instead of that shoulder feeling so tight and achy, it feels better and looser. And the neck feels better and looser. And all of a sudden your back starts feeling better because you're increasing the strength and endurance of all the different muscles in your body that are having another direct relation to your posture and your range of motion. And so what can you do today to build a strong, pain-free neck? The first thing, if you can, identify and strengthen the largest asymmetries in your body. And start with the ones that are closest to the neck. Oftentimes this neck area, I know I've said this before, but I'm stressing it, it's taking the load and work for other areas near that area, right? Near it. The rest of your spine, your shoulder blades, even your arms. I've done work with people who worked on their elbow and their neck pain got better and better over the course of a week. They were really surprised, but that's just the area that was lower quality that was leading to the neck having to work overtime. And so if you can get your shoulder blades stronger, your trunk stronger, everything's going to start feeling better. I'd recommend these areas to start with. A side bend motion in the trunk, a rotation motion of the trunk. If there's anything pushing and pulling, as well as a lateral raise movement. Now the tricky thing is that some of these things might bother you to do and you got to figure a way around that. But if you could really easily do an exercise on both sides and see how well you could do them, whether it's side bends on a side bend machine at the gym or just holding that position really hard on both sides and see how long it takes for you to fatigue out and time it, or count repetitions, you get an idea of what kind of difference there is left to right. And if you work on that side that has less endurance, less strength, you're going to start clearing up some of those asymmetries in your body. So once we know where these biggest asymmetries are, the next best thing you can do is start to exercise unilaterally. That just means working each side of the body independently of the other one. There's some really great machines out there that can do that. If you don't have access to machines that can do that, or you only have dumbbells or free weights, you'll just have to figure out a way to do that one side at a time. But what this will allow you to do is to slowly bring up the deficit from the weaker side to the stronger one, giving you more and more asymmetry. I recommend 2 sets between 10 and 20 repetitions for these weaker areas 3 to 7 times a week. And if you do them at a controlled pace, this will be fine for most people. The great thing is if you track your progress, you'll see in as little as a month, giant improvements in how you feel and how you move. Other things that you can do here are going to improve the strength and stamina at the joints and muscles to the greatest range of motion that you can tolerate. So it's not enough to kind of be pushing like this. If your push on your left side is weaker, you want to go through an excursion that you feel comfortable in, that feels safe. Because what do we want to do? We want to be training the full range of motion. If you're training through a full range of motion, as far back as a muscle can take you, and then moving as far forward as a muscle can take you, right? Its most long position and its shortest position, your body will learn that those are safe positions to be in. And they'll give you those range of motions to have available through your day-to-day life. I can't stress this enough. Exercising your entire body does wonders for your health and for your neck. The other thing I want to put out here is your body has a finite of energy and strength. This means that if you're doing day-to-day activities and chores and you're starting to get tired and achy, if you keep pushing through it, it means you're really overloading that joint that's working overtime more and more and more. And it's going to get tighter and achier, and it's going to make the problem worse. The best thing that you can do is titrate your activities, which is to say, space them out a little bit. If you know you got 4 hours of gardening to do 2 hours, rest a little bit, then do 2 hours. Even a little bit of rest of half an hour between doing the full 4 hours, break it up into 2 and 2, can go a long way to help you recover and feel better. It's not just about exercising, it's also about thinking about how can we do things in our life differently to help our bodies feel better and recover better. So, summary here. Move and challenge positions in your body every day, especially the ones that are closer to the neck. Improve the strength and stamina of your joints and muscles to the greatest range of motion that you can tolerate, right? That feels good. Identify and strengthen the largest asymmetries in your body. And lastly, give your body rest when it needs it. Plan out and titrate your activities. At the end of the day, you have to give your body what it needs. Programs and one-size-fits-all approaches that are like that seldomly work. You need to exercise customized for you. And I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me, glenn@moen@gmail.com. Check me out at strattontotalperformance.com or glenn@glennowen.ca. I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to share this with friends and family as well. Anyone who you think might have neck issues, because honestly, I just want to see the rest of the world feel amazing. Thanks everyone, take care.